The Texas coastline, stretching for hundreds of miles, offers a breathtaking expanse of golden sands, sparkling under the sun, and vibrant communities nestled along the shore. Here, the rhythm of the waves sets the pace of life, and the salty breeze carries stories of generations past. It's a haven for wildlife, where herons, seagulls, and countless shorebirds gather, thriving in the rich habitats the coast provides. For generations, this coastline has stood as a symbol of resilience and life, drawing anglers eager for the day's catch and tourists seeking relaxation and adventure. The boardwalks buzz with laughter, and the piers are lined with hopeful fishermen at dawn. Early mornings saw shrimp boats heading out, their lights twinkling in the pre-dawn mist, a daily ritual that has shaped the culture and economy of these towns. Overhead, pelicans glide gracefully above the waves, scanning the water for their next meal, a familiar sight that signals the health of the ecosystem. The marshes, lush and vibrant, teem with life, fish darting below the surface, birds nesting in the reeds, and a chorus of sounds that mark the coast as a sanctuary for countless species. The coast was more than just a place where land meets water. It was a thriving ecosystem, a living tapestry, and a cornerstone of Texan identity, woven into the very fabric of local culture. Towns from Galveston to Corpus Christi thrived on fishing, tourism, and the steady pulse of the Gulf, their economies and traditions deeply tied to the water. Families gathered on piers, boats bobbed in quiet harbors, and a deep connection to the Gulf united everyone, young and old. Generations weathered hurricanes and economic shifts, always returning to the water's edge, rebuilding and renewing their bond with the coast after every storm. The coastline was their backyard, their playground, their heritage, a place where memories were made and traditions passed down. The idea that this landscape, so constant and comforting, could ever betray them was unthinkable. The coast was a source of pride and peace. But in May 2025, that serenity shattered. The skies darkened, and a sense of unease crept in. The familiar sounds of the coast, waves, laughter, birds, faded, replaced by an unsettling silence that blanketed the shoreline. The ground itself began to show signs of hidden distress, with cracks forming in the sand and fissures snaking through once stable ground. What started as a whisper of concern would soon become a roar, as the Texas coast faced a threat no one saw coming, a challenge that would test the spirit and resilience of every community along the shore. It began subtly. One quiet morning, a fisherman in Matagorda Bay noticed something strange. A deep, jagged crack near the water's edge, slicing through the sand in a way he'd never seen before. He'd seen erosion plenty of times, but this was different, sharper, deeper, and stretching much further than any storm gully or tide mark. The crack seemed to defy explanation, as if the earth itself was splitting open. He mentioned it to friends at the dock, but most just shrugged it off, thinking it was another oddity of the ever-changing coast. But soon, similar stories began to surface up and down the coast. Reports trickled in from other towns, cracks appearing where none had been before. Dog walkers and beachcombers stumbled upon jagged lines etched into the sand and marshland, some so fresh the earth still crumbled at the edges. Social media lit up with photos and videos of these cracks, some small and harmless, others alarmingly wide, splitting the ground in places people had walked for years. Was it an earthquake, aggressive erosion, or something else entirely? Scientists and seismologists arrived, puzzled by the scale and speed of the changes. Local news picked up the story, their cameras capturing unsettling images that fueled anxiety and speculation throughout the region. The cracks didn't stop. They grew, lengthening and widening by the day, some splitting open overnight, leaving locals in shock each morning. Access to beaches became dangerous. Warning signs and barriers went up as the landscape changed before their eyes, familiar paths now too risky to cross. The Texas coast, once a source of pride and joy, became a source of deep worry and uncertainty for everyone who called it home. The whispers of concern became shouts at community meetings, with residents demanding answers and action from officials and scientists alike. These weren't just surface disturbances, some cracks were growing rapidly, measuring several feet across, threatening homes, roads, and livelihoods. The mystery of the Texas cracks had begun, capturing national attention as headlines spread and experts from across the country weighed in. The coast's familiar face was changing dramatically, with landmarks altered or lost, and no one knew why or how far it would go. The nation watched, anxious for answers, as the unraveling coastline became a symbol of uncertainty and fear for what might come next. What made these fissures so disturbing? It wasn't just their size or sudden appearance, It was the sense that something unknown was at work beneath the surface, something that defied easy explanation. Locals and geologists were no strangers to the effects of normal erosion, having seen the coastline shift and change over the years. But these cracks were different, unlike anything they'd witnessed before. They appeared with alarming speed and uncanny precision, not the slow, gradual surrender of land to water that everyone expected. It was as if the earth itself was being split open by invisible hands. Some fissures ran eerily parallel to the coast, stretching for hundreds of feet, while others cut deep into the marshlands, disrupting habitats and reshaping the landscape overnight. Eyewitnesses described waking up to find new cracks zigzagging across their land with no storms, heavy rains, or earthquakes to blame. The ground had simply split open in the dead of night. The lack of any obvious trigger only fueled fear and uncertainty among residents. People began to wonder if their homes and livelihoods were at risk from forces they couldn't see or predict. Even Pelican Point Nature Reserve, a vital sanctuary for migratory birds, reported extensive cracking through its fragile wetlands, threatening both wildlife and the delicate balance of the ecosystem. Along Matagorda Bay, fissures snaked along the shoreline, and some even claimed to see evidence of cracks forming on the bay floor itself, hinting at a problem that extended beneath the water. These weren't isolated incidents. The cracks formed a spreading pattern, appearing in multiple locations up and down the Texas coast, as if following some hidden logic. The cracks felt ominous, casting a shadow over the community, as if something fundamental was shifting below the surface, something that could change the coastline forever. Erosion wears away the surface over time, but these cracks hinted at deeper, more powerful forces at work, forces that no one fully understood. The land itself seemed to be pulling apart, as if the very foundation of the coast was being tested and found wanting. Each new fissure only deepened the mystery, prompting urgent calls for scientific expertise and emergency meetings with local leaders desperate for answers. The Texas coast was facing a crisis unlike any before, a crisis that threatened not just the land, but the very sense of security for everyone who called this place home. Alarmed, state authorities called in geologists, engineers, and environmental scientists. This was no longer a local issue, it was a full-scale investigation. Teams arrived with high-tech instruments, ground-penetrating radar, GPS sensors, and drones. They mapped the subsurface, monitored ground movement, and collected water and soil samples. The findings were troubling. The cracks were deep, not superficial. Radar revealed complex fracture networks beneath the surface. The problem stretched for miles, impacting beaches and wetlands alike. Scientists, usually objective, showed visible concern. The crisis had grown from isolated reports to a regional emergency. Data suggested a significant geological event was underway. The urgency intensified with every new discovery. The Texas coast was in the grip of a mystery with potentially devastating consequences. The race for answers had truly begun. With alarming data in hand, scientists scrambled to find the cause. Was it natural geology or human activity, or both? The Texas coastal plain sits atop ancient faults, usually inactive, but could they be reawakening? Growth faulting and subsidence were considered, as was the impact of oil and gas extraction. Decades of resource removal can cause land to sink. Fracking and groundwater withdrawal added to the puzzle. The rapid, widespread cracking suggested a complex mix of natural and human factors. Pinpointing the cause was crucial for any hope of mitigation. The fissures threatened not just people, but the entire coastal ecosystem. Saltwater intrusion became an immediate concern, as cracks allowed Gulf water to seep into freshwater marshes and aquifers. This could devastate plants and animals unadapted to salt, disrupting food chains and habitats. Estuaries, nurseries for fish and shrimp, faced dangerous changes in salinity. Nesting grounds for sea turtles and shorebirds were at risk. Wetland drainage patterns shifted, endangering amphibians and wading birds. Barrier islands, the coast's storm shield, could be compromised. If cracks intersected old industrial sites, contaminants could leak, compounding the crisis. The Texas coast's rich biodiversity now hung in the balance. The cracks didn't just scar the land, they fractured lives and futures. Residents faced fear, uncertainty, and the threat of losing homes and livelihoods. Property values plummeted, insurance claims soared. Fishing and tourism, the economic lifeblood, suffered as beaches closed and tourists stayed away. History offered warnings. Venice, California, Louisiana, all places where land subsidence changed lives forever. The need for immediate and long-term solutions became clear. As of June 6, 2025, the crisis remains critical. States of emergency have been declared. Scientists work around the clock. Emergency measures are temporary, the demand for lasting solutions grows. The Texas coast's future depends on choices made now. This is a wake-up call, a reminder of the delicate balance between people and nature. The coast is crying out for help, and its fate hangs in the balance.